Hi guys, Olive here. Today I would like to do a little bit of a casual chatty type video. I don't do these super frequently. It's very rare that I don't sit down and have some sort of a plan of what I'd like to talk about in a video, but I wanted to make this really conversational and really authentic since it's something I've been thinking about over the past couple of weeks. So let's see how this goes. I'm doing the booktuber thing today. I got my tea. I thought it was appropriate to have this prop slash delightful beverage because today I'd like to talk to you about feeling like I'm not a real booktuber. It may surprise you to learn that while I generally do not suffer from a confidence problem, there are a lot of times where I feel like I'm not a real booktuber. This is something that's been on my mind since before I even started this channel, and it has stayed on my mind up to the present day. A couple of weeks ago, when I was sitting down thinking about my August reading, and everything I wanted to say about all the books that I read in August during my August wrap-up, I was looking back at my list of how many books I had read and saw that there were going to be 9 or 10 for me to talk about. And still, I felt that I hadn't read that much. I found this to be both really interesting and really disturbing because before I started Booktube, I was reading maybe 4 books a month. Like if I read 4 books in a month, I thought I was doing pretty damn good. Now, certainly that can be credited to the fact that being on Booktube is a huge motivator to read, and you will start reading more and more as you're more engaged in the community, as you're making more videos. But the thing that really disturbed me about the dissatisfaction I felt with those 9 or 10 books that I read in August was the realization that I don't think I've ever been completely happy with the number of books that I read per month. I think it's difficult on Booktube to ever feel truly satisfied with the reading you're doing because there's always someone who's reading more books, who has had a better month, someone who's put out better videos if you are a booktuber. And while we all know that it's not a great idea to compare yourself to others, it's hard not to. Like, it's really hard not to. Back in like 2014, before I started my Booktube channel, I was just starting to get back into reading in a big way. I was perusing different bookish sites on the internet. I was heavily getting into Goodreads, and I was beginning to watch and fall in love with Booktube. I was watching a lot of booktubers who were really inspirational and really made me want to get into reading. But of course, at that point, before I was really involved in the community, I wasn't reading as much as them. So it was easy to be a little bit intimidated, like, ooh, that person read 6 books this month. I don't read that much. Am I really going to have enough to talk about if I start a channel? And then I really started to psych myself out when I went down the rabbit hole of comparing my Goodreads profile to their Goodreads profiles. And I saw how many more books they had on their read shelf than I did. When I started my Goodreads profile, I decided not to include any books that I read in childhood or any books that I read as a young adult. There would have been a lot of books for me to put on my read shelf had I decided to include those, but I kind of wanted to turn a new leaf, start a new chapter in my life as an adult reader, and not have those on there, if only because I didn't want Goodreads to be constantly recommending me books based off of those. So when I first started on Goodreads, I did not have a lot of books on my read shelf, and I was super insecure about that. How on earth was I going to consider myself any kind of authority to talk about books on the internet and expect people to watch me if I had not read basically anything? It made me kind of sad recently when I heard about a conversation that happened between 2 book people on the internet. I would not divulge names even if I could remember them. But it was basically a back and forth between 2 people talking about how they can tell if someone's actually into reading or not. And it was largely based on superficial things. Had I read that conversation before deciding to give Booktube a shot, I probably would have found it extremely discouraging because I didn't feel like a real reader. I feel like it's important for me to acknowledge these feelings and to talk about them openly, because I feel like people who were just getting started in the community might need to hear that someone who's been around for approaching 3 years still doesn't feel like they're entirely qualified to do it. Other booktubers, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if any of us feel 100% qualified to be doing this. I don't have an English degree. I've never studied literature. Of all the courses that I took in college, not one of them was English specific. I don't want to work in the book industry. I would like to be an audiobook narrator, but that's not the book industry. That's the acting industry. I love Russian studies, but I've not read much Russian literature and don't really feel a desire to become an aficionado in that subject matter. I deliberately put off doing recommendations videos because I feel that I have never read enough books in any one particular genre to feel qualified to give recommendations. I firmly believe that listening to an audiobook is the same thing as reading a physical book, and yet I'm still afraid if I say half of the books I read this month are audiobooks that people aren't going to think I'm a real reader. My interests are so broad and my reading is so all over the place that I have legitimate worries that my reading is always just going to be dabbling here and there and I will never become an expert in any one specific genre. The point of me telling you all this is not just for therapeutic reasons, although it does serve that purpose as well, but I'm going to give you the honest truth. Past Olive, Booktube lurker extraordinaire, was intimidated by anyone with any kind of a subscriber count, anyone who had more than like 100 books on their read shelf on Goodreads. I was intimidated by anyone who was well read enough in a specific subject matter, in a specific genre, or had read enough by a specific author to give you detailed, intelligent recommendations about where you should start, what they liked the most. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. I didn't know if I felt qualified to be able to do that. I still don't know if I feel qualified to do these things. And while I know a lot of videos about not feeling good enough, having imposter syndrome, feeling like you're going to be outed as an imposter at any moment, typically start to go into a lesson on how you shouldn't compare yourself to others and you should respect your own journey. I agree with all of that, but I do think there is something to be said about comparing yourself to others in a positive way. It can be so motivating watching other people's booktube videos and see all the things that they do so well. It makes me want to push myself harder. It makes me want to see if I can go new places with my reading, if I can get something new out of my reading, if I start thinking a little differently. It makes me start thinking about the words that I choose more carefully when I talk about the books that I read. So it's not always harmful to compare yourself to others. But when you're starting to play the numbers game, when you're starting to think, I only read 6 books when this person is regularly reading 12 a month, it starts to become detrimental. I wish I could say that I had everything all figured out and that I had a game plan of how to get myself to stop doing this, but I don't know. I have always been someone who's had really high expectations of myself, most of the time unrealistically so. But there's going to have to be a breaking point where I realize that 10 books a month is more than okay. That if I've been here on Booktube having fun, feeling like it's going well, that maybe that's qualification enough. But I want anyone out there who's watching, who's maybe thinking about making a Booktube channel or has started Booktube and is feeling discouraged, who is intimidated by the reading that others are doing, I want you to know that it's not just you who's feeling this way, that you're not alone in these feelings of being intimidated. You're not the only one who might feel like an imposter. You're not the only one who might feel that you don't have the qualifications to talk about books with any kind of authority. And obviously at this point, I can't tell you that those feelings go away, but I can tell you that the things you might think you need to have a successful Booktube channel are not necessarily true. I was talking to my husband the other night about this channel and how crazy I find it that it's been nearly 3 years since I've been doing this and how far it's come in 3 years. And he reminded me of what I was saying when I was thinking about starting. I was going back and forth on the idea of starting this channel for a long while, mainly because of the feelings that I've mentioned earlier. But one day I approached him and I said, you know, I think I'm just going to start it. And if I don't like it, I'm just going to stop. Had I not decided to give it a try, had I not given myself this space to figure out just what I wanted to do with this channel in my own way, then Booktube would not be the big, important part of my life that it is today, but I do want there to be one voice coming from this direction in this particular video, saying that it's okay to be unsure of yourself. It's okay to have your doubts. It's okay to be worried about just what you're going to contribute to this community. A lot of that stuff you will start to figure out as you go along. And all the rest of it, well, just know that there are those of us who've been around for a while who are still feeling it. If there's anything in this video that you have comments on or anything that resonated with you, I would love to hear from you in the comment section down below, or you can chat with me on a variety of different places on social media. All of the links to my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.